thank you for all joining us. The good news is, yes, we do have some goodies. We have some stuff we want to talk about with you. The very bad news is, but as I told him, health comes first. Our guest speaker just informed us at the very last minute that he doesn't feel too well, so he can't join. So yeah, for all those that joined just because of the Jupyter notebooks, which I was very excited about, because for me it would have also been a learning session. Because honestly, I didn't spend too much other than just enough to demo, tell the customer if you know more, and not having done that much with it. But but today not, next time. So we'll discuss with Brian when he can join next time, whether that will be in August or in September. Mentioning August or September, why not July? In July, we decided to take a little break, summer break. But yeah, nevertheless, we're doing good in talking to people. We got some emails, people who'd like to talk and present on the show. So don't worry, we're not getting out of ideas. And yeah, since also the platform around KQL is continuously evolving, I'm not afraid, that we ever have nothing to talk about. But yeah, today probably not going to spend that much time as if we would have a guest. Yeah. So yeah, that's it for the. Sorry.
We can though.
Yeah. Good. So yeah, I'm actually sitting somewhere in the hotel room. So just that you understand my dedication to this show. I thought I already missed out last time. So this time I was on the road, and I thought I totally messed up with my agenda, and I thought, okay, let's just stay another night, just so that I can run the show quietly and don't have to run it somewhere on the street with noisy cars around me. So, as usual, what's new? Well, not really new, but sometimes people can't follow everything. So, for all KQL fanatics, just in case you missed it, the KQL Detective Agency has started season 2. And if you're just watching this video and you ask yourself, what's the KQL Detective Agency? Take a look. And if you haven't done season 1, that's actually a cool thing. You can still, when you click here on the KQL agency on the very left side, you can still switch the season. So if you haven't done season 1, go there. It will be there. I talked to the inventors of this. It will be there forever. Not sure about the prizes in season 1, but you definitely can take the challenges. KQL Detective Agency. It's all free. All you have to do is to sign up for a free Data Explorer instance, which you can do as well. Again, every time when you log on to this platform, you're basically logging on not with your user account, but you are logging on with your very personal Azure free Data Explorer instance URL. And later in the show, Johnny is going to talk a little bit about season 2.
Then not too much.
Next, we don't want to spoil things, but maybe give you some ideas. Yeah. Then next, just learned about this the other day. There is a other video series. It's made by a Microsoft employee who, according to LinkedIn, is a SOC analyst, a security analyst, and he decided when he wrote me to actually start this. So you might all know, sure you know, Rod Trent, who started the Must Learn KQL series, where he builds the foundation to really start learning the ABC of KQL with very simple, queries, going through search and top and sort and that sort of things. And honestly, I just forgot the name, but the person behind this one said, I want to make those 10-minute KQL videos. So everyone who has an excuse like I have no time. On the other hand, learning KQL, I just did a customer workshop today and I told about 10 people, hey, KQL, you have to learn it. And they looked at me and said, yeah, definitely. Not if you just do security, but also if you're dealing with Azure, if you're dealing with Intune, you're going to be happy. And I always make a comparison. I haven't evangelized PowerShell back in the days. And why we're doing this show, well, we're evangelizing KQL. So 10 minutes, I believe, should be affordable. Take a look. Very interesting, cool videos. Yeah, strongly recommend watching these as well. Then next about what's new. Yeah, we have some new action types in the device network events. This is actually an announcement that was recently made. It will happen on July. And if you go a little bit further, I will get into the details. So previously in device network events, we were already able to, find information about FTP, SSH, HTTP, etc. But as you can see in the sample query below, you basically first have to query in the device network events. Then you would have to look for the action type, network signature expected. Then you had to kind of, grab the information by extending another field to then decide, do I want to look at SSH, FTP, HTTP, etc. And yeah, with this announcement, what we see here is that basically we now get specific action types already for FTP, SSH, SMB. And this is also thanks to the integration of Zeek. So, maybe if you're interested, take a look, run the second query, or simply run in the device network events, run a distinct on action type, and then take a look at those action types that refer to the new actions, and have a look what you can get out of there. I seeing like, doesn't necessarily have to be on port 21. But also interesting is that now we get a little bit more information. We're not just getting information about, okay, there was a connection from A to B on FTP, but actually, we're getting a little bit more information what actually happened there. So I was actually able to see partial information even of the FTP commands that were submitted. I haven't spent that much time, and to be honest with you, publicly, I'm not really a network inspection specialist, but I get an idea of what we're getting out of these events. So definitely an interesting topic to look at, especially if you have those discussions about, we still have a proxy or a firewall and we're collecting those events. And I'm curious, whether we find similar information from a client side, meaning from Defender for Endpoint, that can add value to our detection or hunting activities. Good. Let's move on. The next topic. Yeah, this one, to be honest, I also noticed from some forums, has caused a little bit of confusion among some people. including myself, although I was very much aware of, what's happening. But to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure how to deal with this. And what's happening here? This is related to Defender for Cloud Apps that, historically, Defender for Cloud Apps had a number of alert templates and policies, that would alert on mass delete, mass download, impossible travel, which again, is working with Defender for Identity, activity from infrequent country. Now, the downside of these type of alerts was that they could be quite noisy. And right now, if you read the announcement that was first announced in the message center here, but meanwhile, there's also public documentation. So if you don't have access to the message center, have a look at those exactly. That's this one. And in short, what's basically happening on I think in May 29th, that's when I saw this in my tenant, all those policies got disabled. Now, if you're not too happy about that and you still rely on those, you can go back right now and you can turn those policies on in Defender for Cloud Apps. But basically, if I got it right, and I'm happy to be corrected, because they could be quite noisy, Microsoft decided to turn off the alerts, but we continue to receive the signals. And the signals we continue to receive in the form, not in a form, but they're stored in a new table. And that's why we get two new tables. We get those two new tables are currently only available in Defender 365. Of course, people are asking, when do we get them in Sentinel? And like in other areas, maybe a little breakout. I mean, same with identity info, right? We have identity info Defender 365, and we also have an identity info table in Sentinel, but they're not really the same. And we also have in Sentinel, from Sentinel UEBA, we have behavior analytics. That's why we also have a table in Sentinel. But coming back to this topic, in Defender 365, we now have two tables. One is behavior info, and the other is behavior info entities, if I'm correct. Yeah. And if you look at the behavior info, what you will basically see, you will see a signal, that, John Doe had an impossible travel. That's one record, to call it like that, or one row entry. And you also see a text, like a full human readable text, like, John Doe was traveling from A to B and he used that IP address. Now, that's nice, but if we want to process those alerts, we basically need to join them with behavior info entities. So as soon as we do behavior info join on behavior info entities on behavior, I believe it's a behavior action ID or something, then you get all the entities that are related to that behavior. And yeah, if I get it right, the idea is that because it was so noisy, that now we can create our custom detections. So if we were constantly bombarded with, impossible travel alerts from specific IP addresses or locations, and, we always ended up closing them, now we can basically build our query and maybe, exclude some things and then create a custom detection rule to generate an alert from it. Yeah. So that's how I believe the plans are from Microsoft. So yeah, definitely, take a look at those, the whole transition. It's not the end. They are actually talking about, more behavior information coming. and that we then should build our detections on those. Yeah. So yeah, probably more to come. But yeah, since a well-known fellow, told me that like he totally missed this announcement, I thought, okay, let's make sure everybody becomes aware of it. And just in case you're thinking in the last couple of weeks, like, oh, we didn't get those alerts recently, you might want to go back into Cloud App Security and notice that those alerts have been automatically disabled. But as the article mentioned, you can turn them on again. Good. Next topic. Well, this is the details. We'll link. Yeah, and then we got a very, very interesting new function in Azure Data Explorer, but it's also available in Sentinel. And it's called GeoInfo from IP address. And for that, let me quickly share my screen. As Johnny and I prepared some demo plays for this to actually illustrate why you would want to use that and what are possible use cases. So let me first get this right. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, we have the Minute KQL, talked about that. Yeah, that's for later. We talked about the detection agency. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, here is the official documentation about GeoInfo from IP address. And yeah, as it says, we can now provide an IP address and it will return information about the country, state, city, latitude, longitude. Not really new, you might think. And yes, you're partially right. So if I go here, let me load that. Come on. Don't let me down. Okay, good. So here, first example, actually, Johnny told me, we could get external location data before without that function by simply, using here the external data operator. And I started on purpose to do this on the signing logs. But just to show you that, running this, enriching the signing logs, doesn't really make sense. Because, in fact, in the signing logs, I already have all this information by default. Yeah. If we expand the signing logs and we go to, if I just do this, let's do some basic repetition. Signing logs take 100. In this case, Microsoft already kindly, includes location information in the signing logs already, location details. I have city, I have country, I have the state, and I have the geolocation coordinates. So, what's the buzz? Well, if a table already has geolocation, that's fine. But what about tables that don't have that information? Like, office, office activity. Yeah. Okay, that was a typo. Take 10. Yeah. If we look at the office activity table, we have a lot of interesting information, but we don't have any location details. We do have the IP address though. So what we can do, we can, on office activity, of course, we can use this, lookup to external data again. So run this. If I just do the days, but hang on with me. But basically, what we now get, we now get the office activity with the client IP, and the client IP is now enriched with the geolocation. Now, we can save a lot of lines here because with the new function that we have, all we basically have to do is to say extend geoinfo, call this function, provide the IP address. And you see also it goes much faster. Much is relative, but and you can see that now without making use of any external, data parameters, we also get the geolocation for our IP addresses. So yeah, definitely interesting if we want to enrich our data. I mean, previously, maybe in Sentinel, we have playbooks and we did lookups, or we used, tricks like this. But now, and as Johnny explained to me, maybe you want to add to this, Johnny. I mean, behind this function, there's nothing more than actually a call to this backend database, right?
Well, yes, it's the same manufacturer. The data is coming from MaxMind, but I believe that Microsoft also is white labeling their data set in this product. Also, because we don't only get to look up IPv4 with the query, but we can also do IPv6. So it's a little more powerful than the old way. And for some reason, I also think that the operator is a bit quicker.
Yeah, that's also what I noticed. Yeah. Okay, just making another guest. So yeah, back to you, Johnny.
Cool. Let's see. Share screen. 2. We have the new query. And we had the slide of Brian, which I hope we have in August. And then we have what? So let's go a step back because I also prepared some things. Because what I wanted to share today were 2 things. And one was related to a detection which I wrote. And let's see. Azure.com. Let's I think it's still in here. No. And let's go. Status closed. Okay, that's where is it? Where is it? What we have here is a detection from Azure AD Identity Protection. And this is a sample. I've been working with a customer to find out what happened during one of their incidents. And what happened was a adversary gained access to a user account, bypassing or retransmitting the MFA token, and then he was able to register his device. So what we wanted to find out is if there is a way that we could have detected it or could have prevented it, or at least get some notifications when the attacker registered an MFA device. So to do this, I recreated the steps on. I enabled logging, and then I registered. I enabled VPN and registered an MFA device. So if we look in Kusto, no, not this one. First, I started looking by the audit logs because the registration of a new device happens and then it gets logged in the audit logs. So for this example, let me make it a bit easier to read. Maybe not that easy. So over here, this is the normal flow. A user starts their security info registration. Then the user gets updated, and then you get a log stating, hey, the user registered his device. And also what you could also monitor is deletion of security info. So if someone gets access to an account, probably the first thing they will do is register a device. And then the second step would be to delete the device. So when we look at this data a bit further, you can see, okay, so in this case, we saw the registration of the app notification and code. So you can also look for maybe SMS registration or other things depending on your use case. And there's some more nice info here. Here's the results reason, which is more or less the same. And then there's the activity display name, which also shows started and registered. So what you can also do in KQL is then we show the relevant columns first, so that you can quickly see, hey, okay, so we're going to build a detection for this, and we just want to make sure that we see all the right things. And now we know a bit easier, hey, okay, so these are the columns. Over here we also have operation add. So maybe you can also double check to see if the actions you're looking for are can be found. So for instance, if we do, hey, show me everything that is where AAD operation type equals add, nope, two equal signs. Let's just say it's my small tenant, so we don't have a lot of logs. But we can, for instance, see, hey, okay, so if you add a service principal or add everything that is added is in this set. Also, you can see a bit of difference over here. We have user management, we have application management. And those are the two kinds of flavors where you have add. So we started playing with the data and we found out that, hey, this is the best way to detect the adding of the device. So the other thing we noticed is when you look at the sign-in logs is over here, we have the same time frame, and then we see a couple of things happening. So I started by bumping into the strong authentication required, and that's over here with the Office app in this case. So I started Word and started playing around a bit. But maybe it's easier if we also first sort the columns a bit because it's quite a lot of data. So let's sort them. And now we see, hey, okay, so this is my account. For some reason I was in the Netherlands and both in Thailand for a short period of time. and also active in the Netherlands. So that's also a bit of weird behavior. And in this case, I started looking at the risk event types and the levels. So over here we can see, hey, if someone logs into here, you can see high risk due to VPN from Thailand. And there's also some hints on why it was a high risk, because in this case it had unfamiliar features. And have it here. No. Over here. Okay. So what in this case was a nice helper for this is that we saw the Office application. Let me just have it also here. So we have app, display name, and client app used. We all of a sudden have the access from the Office Home application, which is the installed version of Office. And then what we also noticed was once the attacker, in this case myself, had access and we approved the MFA request, the Azure AD also decided, hey, it's Azure AD, MFA was successful, so let's remediate the risk state. So according to Azure AD, this would be fine. And in this case, at the customer, it wasn't. That's also a reason why we wanted to see if we could detect it. So we started building on a new step for the detection. Because if we want to combine these two, we can look for, hey, give us all users with the state at risk. And let's see in the last period, because it was a while ago. So over here we have two risk states, and one was a bit early. Okay. So we have two risk states, and then we want to combine that one with the MFA registration. And from the MFA registration, we had, let's see, we wanted to see the audit logs. And from the audit log, we decided, hey, user management and user registered security info. And then also where the status was success. And I also did a bit of parsing from that, from the rest of the message, because we have the initiated by user, and that's the IP address. And also you want the user principal name and the Azure AD ID, because if you create a detection in the entities page, you want to make sure that you have as much entities there as possible for the incident graph, and also to link it to other incidents. So if we have that one, I also decided to create a lowercase, another lowercase of the user principal name. I also did that at the risk state, because we're going to do a join on those two. And we want to make sure that if the adversary uses uppercasing and the audit log see lowercasing, then it won't join. So if we get the results from the MFA registrations in the last 90 days, this is just the registration, and we have the lowercase. So let's join that with the risky users. And in joins, I think we discussed it a while ago, you have several options. You have the inner join, the inner unique join, where it does do a one-on-one match, and then you have left outer, right outer. You can do a whole show on that, but let's do an inner join on the risky users and on the lowercase user principal name. And now we have several records. because it has 2 hits on the alert on the risky state and 2 hits on the MFA registration, because I tested it before I did the whole demo. So that's why we have 2 records. And then we want to do a bit of calculation, because you have the time generated, and above here we have the risk time. So what we'll do is we'll do an extend where we say, hey, delta register and risk time as the delta from in minutes from the register time and the risk time. So we can have a bit of an idea which is matching to which, because in this case, we see over here that this one, the register time was after the risk time. So we know for sure that the user was at risk and it got registered. And these are just, in this case, false positives. So what we can do is if we say, hey, we have the risk time and where we want to be between 0 and 180. During testing, this was a reasonable amount. Now we have just one occasion. And in this case, it was the actual event which I triggered. And to make it more pretty, we can again sort it. So we have the risk time, the register time, the delta. You can do the math, but it's nicer. And then over here, why is the identity empty? And okay, identity. That's odd. It should be. Let me just double check that. Okay, so in the events, we have an identity, and in the actual events, okay. So we did a join on this record, but this specific record doesn't have the identity. It does have location details, which we can add. So let's see, location details. And for identity, we can do user. So now we have some more data, which makes it easier for the person who runs the query as a hunt. But you can then, of course, also create a incident creation rule. And then make sure that you add all the nice identities. MFA detection, and this MFA registration while at risk, and can do tactics. Let's see. In this case, it is persistence. Just create, modify. Financial access. No. Yeah.
While Johnny is trying hard, I can confirm. Back in April, I had a customer case, and I talked about it with Johnny while he was actually developing this, and he said, "Oh, I created a rule for this." And interesting enough, I had an exact match. So although it already had happened, the query actually, will do the work in finding out that activity. I can also share it with some colleagues, and they also confirmed back that, the results that this query gave did actually match with real events where, this thing that you don't want to have to happen did actually happen. So yeah, definitely a very useful detection method. Yeah.
So and then also we want to have the IP address so that you have a nice map. IP 1 hour. In this way, we have a nice query to run this every time, and it's also to make sure that there won't be any MFA registration during your in your end tenant during signing risk. So that's a nice query which I wanted to share. I also will put it in the show notes.
Great. Yeah, let me actually stay on this topic while you were fiddling with those entities. I can share something that for those creating, detection rules, it could be useful. No, that's not what I wanted to show. Sorry. Stop presenting. Come on. Okay. Good. Another try. This one eventually. No. Too many windows open. So let's start closing some. Okay. So when we develop those detections, it can be quite helpful to understand what entities do I actually get from a detection. And that can be especially useful when I create playbooks. Because when I create playbooks, if I know for 100% that, based on the analytic rule, I always, get exactly one entity back. I don't have to think of doing loops in my playbooks, like a, for each loop. Now, if I create and develop the detections myself, I might actually know, what's happening. But if I don't, and if I just, borrow an analytic rule being from Microsoft or for the community, it's important that, I understand what data do I get back. So let's just take an example here. Let's take this TI map signing logs. Yeah, so I'm going to run this. And what I'm basically doing here, I run a query to show me all incidents, in this case with this title. So you can replace, the title to whatever incident you're interested in that you might have in Sentinel or that you're planning to add to Sentinel. Then, because the entities are not in the incident, but actually they are in the security alert itself, there we have entities. And then what I'm basically doing, I'm calling this E-type, like entity type. I do I extend this, yeah, and then I do an evaluate pivot. So that's easier than just doing all this summarizing, decount, and whatever. And what we see here is okay. Here my incident number, yeah, and I see okay. I have always an entity of account, yeah, and IP and URL. These are possible entities. But I always see that, okay, yeah, oh no, I do not always get just one entity back. In this case, I got two entities back. So let's take a look. That's why I included the incident URL. So let's take a look at this. Talk later about KQL search. I'm gonna open this thing. Here we have an incident. Let the demo gods would be with me, because we should now see a TA map alert where there was a match. Just for those, sorry about that. TA map means, this rule is looking at our threat intelligence table, where we have threat intelligence, imported from whatever source, Microsoft or third party. And it's basically looking, whether there is a map between the IP address of a signing log in this case, and the threat intelligence. So yeah, you see, we have, this user, and we have a match of those two IP addresses. If I click on here in the inside, I'm probably gonna see a hint in the UI, that this IP was found in the threat intelligence database. Good. So this means that if I would want to create a playbook that does some automation, like, check every IP and do whatever, I will definitely have to create a loop. So let's just remove this thing just on the TI map, and let's learn a little bit more about, any incident, and to get an idea of what entities do we actually get in those incidents. So running the same query, just removed the specification of the incident title. So it's now basically going to show me, all incidents. It should, of course, have added the title, but what we already see here, right? You see all entities. Where do I have the title? Incident number. Okay, let me add the evaluate and just do here. Time generated and title. Is that going to work? Yeah, but not. Okay, always title. Yeah, there we go. Run it again. Now we see the various titles, and let's say, okay, I want to create a playbook for this one. Yeah, and I'm curious whether we have consistency in the entities that we get from a SAP logging from unexpected network. And I can see, okay, the entities I always get is, in this case, it was always one account. Now, of course, I can also look at the analytic rule and maybe also the incident was configured to actually generate a separate incident per event. That's of course also possible. But we can see that we have quite some consistency here. But we see here cloud application, we again have, differences. So yeah, under the umbrella of, know your data. Now, another similar thing I did, which I would like to share under the topic of what did you do last month. So very similar beginning. Actually, this was my start. And what I wanted to actually know is, okay, of course I could do a join of my signing logs and compare my signing log IP addresses with the threat intelligence database, but that is probably going to take quite a while. And also knowing that I have already analytic rules in place, I don't need to stress the system by running unnecessary big queries over that, because as a matter of fact, I already know that I do have an analytic rule running periodically, looking at my threat intelligence database and comparing whether there's any signing log matching. That's exactly what this thing is doing. By the way, I added both because I noticed that in different tenants, either the analytic rule is called preview or just TI map. Probably depends on whether people have updated their query. Okay, so if I run this very first thing, what I actually get is, okay, I get all the IP addresses that were identified as being a match with a signing log connecting, from a malicious known IP address. So probably bots. Yeah. So first I get all the incidents. I expand them with the alerts to get the entity. I then get the IP address. And as a next step, because I want to get some enrichment in this case, I'm joining that IP address now with my threat intelligence. Now, this step already is definitely more efficient than just running my whole signing logs against the threat intelligence. Because if I just do this one, summarize alert count by IP address, if I just do this, I now get, all IP addresses and the number of, how often there was a hit. Yeah. Okay. As a next step, I am going to join this with the threat intelligence database because, I want to get some enrichment. Yeah. I want to, get more info. And finally, I'm actually going back to the signing logs, nevertheless, to get a little bit information because, okay, the TI map, analytic rule as it comes by default from the gallery, it will always generate an alert whether the signing was successful or not successful. And on a side note, I've actually started in some customer tenants to actually break this analytic rule into two, where I set a high severity level if the signing would have been successful versus just a signing attempt. And the reason is that for some customers, I'm really sorry for them, but it can get quite nosy because they are maybe, under the attack of a brute force continuously. Bots are trying to continuously get in there, and that might cause some alert fatigue. So I created two analytic rules, but that is a side note. So what we get here, that's exactly what I want to know in terms of proactive hunting. Okay, I know all the incidents that came from the default alert. I get a little bit of enrichment of what is this threat intelligence indicator about. And finally, I'm going back to the signing logs. Yeah. And I want to know, whether there was a successful logon. I also get some location info. And as you can see here, I see the total number of signings, and I see the failed signings, and I see a successful. Yeah. Now, this is Microsoft's demo tenant, so I'm not too worried about this. But if you had that many successful logons in a production tenant uh, with known, malicious IP addresses, then probably you have a problem. Again, I ran this in a couple of real customer production tenants, and luckily, with the exception of one, it always showed like total signings, many, failed, equal to total signings. But in one case, actually, we also had a match, and that was only an after the fact result because we already had detected that hit earlier. But this might help you get some ideas of, what IPs, are the most active, from where am I being attacked. And yeah, once you get more tracking tail about that IP address, you might actually want to take further steps by blocking those and adding custom indicators, etc. Yeah. So yeah, I hope that was useful or gave some idea what we can all do. Getting back to you, Johnny.
Awesome. So let's share the screen again. So another fun thing we saw was a LinkedIn post from someone who decided to share his. It was Christian Koman who shared his barbecue attempts, where he hooked up his meat thermometer to Kusto. So, well, to I think it's Data Explorer, but it shows how you can connect anything to ADX and hunt on it with KQL. It was a nice one. And
Cool.
then almost, I think we can do a short bit about the Kusto Detective, because it's nice to view that there's always several options. So in the case of the Kusto Detective, let's see, detective.kusto. We have all the challenges, and one was case 2. We don't handle the latest and greatest, but there was a case where you got to hunt on some telephone data. And the fun thing, let me share this one, is there are several ways to sort that one, and it's always fun to see how you can do that. So let me just start here. And
Oh, hold a second. You're using an app for this?
yeah,
Okay.
it's the app, the Kusto Explorer.
Okay. So
It's a desktop app. It can
I
be
heard about it. Allow me to quickly intercept. So where do we get this?
great question. If we go Kusto Explorer.
I hope I'm not the only one who's asking this. But,
It's not this one.
okay.
Where did I get it?
Oh, we have a comment. Okay. Ah. Great. Thanks for that, Peter. Yeah.
Oh, we have a link already?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Great. Okay. Cool. I have to try that out. Yeah.
So we have this data where you can hunt on to detect where the phishing came from. So I was first thinking, hey, we need a connect item to get the connection data, so we know that the caller is calling someone. And the data set was quite large. So what you can do, there are several options, or you can maybe split that one out, or you can say, hey, I only want to say where is hidden is true. So instead of parsing it, you can also do a case sensitive on true. And then we get all the items where there's true in it.
Yeah, and I read a comment from someone, I don't know, on Twitter and LinkedIn, saying, okay, if you have a security background, case description might be more familiar, because if we think about those phishing calls, right, numbers are usually suppressed or hidden and that sort of thing. Yeah, so that was already like a kind of a hint, or when you look at the data, again, know your data. Yeah, and what is why did they actually add an attribute for hidden or not hidden? Yeah, yeah.
So I decided to join it and to the disconnections, because you want to match the calls with the disconnect, so you can think something about that. So we do that, and now we have a lot of calls saying, hey, okay, we did a call, we did a disconnection. And also you can see disconnected by destination or by caller. In this case, I already did a filter on destination. So now we have the calls. So the next steps I did. Yeah.
Yeah, which is also a typical pattern, right? I mean, usually, most people, if they hear, this noisy call center, a couple of seconds until the people start talking, usually, we hang up, right? Because we already have that suspicion of, there we go again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I decided, hey, I want to do something more with this data. So I started parsing the properties with parse KV. And so I had the origin and the destination to do my filtering on. So we can we have the origin, the destination, and then what my idea was to use anomaly detection.
Okay.
Or to see the called numbers, so who called the most numbers in the period of 1 hour.
Yeah.
And let's see that. Now we have a lot of items, because I do I make a series, and I say, hey, give me all the decount all the unique numbers called. And also I say, hey, if you don't have any values, I want to default it to 0, so that we can have a good understanding of the data. And then I decided to do an anomaly detection. And let's see. In this case, as you can see, the data is being handled. It's getting to take a bit more time. It's almost ready now, but
I was just looking in the background because I wasn't too sure, but it was actually case number 2 where I actually had planned time. Usually, I'll drop off and say, I'll be busy now for a couple of longer minutes, can take hours. Like I was astonished. I mean, case two, I think I solved in, I don't know, 5-10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
But also, to be honest, I didn't use any of those sophisticated time series and parse KV. I think if I had started that route, it would have taken me hours. But yeah, I'm not gonna spoil my solution. I can tell you I did it all in KQL, but yeah, just by kind of digesting the data. Yeah, okay, funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So that's also the cool thing, because you have your way, I have my way.
yeah.
And I'm also going to show someone from Microsoft who shared his solution.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment we have, so we did an anomaly detection where anomaly detected, and in this case, this number was the hit for the detective. So I was thinking, hey, okay, I also spent, I think, an hour or maybe two on this to find everything out and to make sure that it was working. And then at one point, someone from Microsoft, Aviv Yaniv, shared his solution. I was thinking, okay, since it's KQL, what can it be? He also put a nice spoiler alert on it. So I went to his GitHub. I was thinking, he has a blog post first, and below there's his query, and it was actually quite shorter. So I was thinking, okay, let's try it out and let's see what his query did. So he also posted the solution here. So what he does is he has the connections. He used toString with the items to get it already. Since it's dynamic, you can also call it this way. And then he also does where is hidden. So he only shows the hidden numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And then he joins it to the disconnects. And then let's just see what it does. And this was the problem where I got a bit sad, because the query runs in 29 seconds and his runs in 2. So I was thinking, okay, so you can do things differently. But I suspected, because I did anomaly detection and I made quite a large, maybe over-engineered it a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice to see that his one was shorter, and in the end it only takes like 2 seconds. And that's also the distinguishment you can make in your detections or in your hunts. Do you want it to make it complicated, or do you want to make it a bit quicker?
Yeah.
That's also
But
nice.
I think that's a normal process, right? I mean, thinking of writing code or PowerShell in the past, and you're finally done. You have the whole script. You look at it the other day and you think, I could have done that with half of the code. But I guess that's the normal, or at least for me, the normal progress of evolving and getting a step further. And then yeah, it depends. Sometimes, okay, when you have the solution, you have still the energy to say, okay, uh, let's erase and start over again and simplify. Or yeah, it's now like 2:30 in the night and it doesn't job. Let's move on. Yeah, yeah. Cool. Yeah, to be honest, I saw those posts as well. I decided to not read them until I'm through this season. Of course, in the very end, everybody decides himself whether they want to capture, those flags by own doing or by getting hints. In fact, in the Kusto Detective, there's also hints you can get if you need to. And yeah, if you're really like desperate and you spent your 10th attempt and you won't get that flag, yeah, you might want to take a look there. Yeah, I personally decided to just ignore for the time being and look at it later because for me, even by not copying, but by just reading, it might unconsciously give me hints I wouldn't have come to myself. And I guess, at least for me, that's the whole reason for doing these Kusto detectives, to actually, spend time. I remember the final case. I really got mad. I spent hours. I knew I was so close. And again, not spoiling, because maybe some people are just starting season 1, but I can tell you, I asked my wife, like, take a look at this picture. There was this big picture where you actually, find something. I was literally going virtually on my knees, through that whole street on the picture, look at every corner if I missed something out. And yeah, finally there was this, aha moment. Yeah, definitely fulfilling those Kusto detectives.
Yeah. So the good news is they happen like every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And the next case is in 3 days, 6 hours, and 41 minutes, which
really?
means Saturday on Sunday night. Yeah. It's midnight on it's Sunday, Saturday on Sunday midnight. So we get to do the next one.
Let's hope family has other plans and it's raining, right? Okay.
Cool.
Good. Well, I would say let's call it a day. Thanks all for joining. Nevertheless, although we had to improvise a little bit, we wish you a very nice summer break if you have some. And otherwise, enjoy the silence while maybe your colleagues are out of the office. And we hope to hear and see you back in August. As always, if you have any ideas, leave a comment. I could be below here when it's on YouTube, or here in the chat. If there's any topics you'd like to learn about. And yeah, I think I'm confident we have a great outlook for August, September, October. We have a couple of interesting people who asked if they can present their topic. So yeah, I'm positively looking forward to move on into this second year and continue for a while, because I believe there are still many corners in KQL that have remained unexplored, at least for me. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thanks everyone, and have a nice evening.
Nice evening.
Or good morning or good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.